word to your mother. It's time for another episode of Birds with Friends. Just some high-flying, ran fast vertical stems of professors from Penn watching Eagles eat and pray like Pazookies on birthdays. It's Philadelphia. Marissa, Bo, and Zach kicking it. Cooler than 3 penguins till Zach runs off with his valet keys. He's a real nuanced goose. Pull up a branch, get loose. It's time for some juice on some
Birds with Friends.
The early bird gets the worm, but prefers getting turned like a turn on some
Birds with Friends.
Marissa, Bo, and Zach are here to squawk. Don't miss the mistress talk on some.
This is what it's all about. We do daily podcasts for like 2.5 weeks during training camp. We got all kinds of time for guests and nonsense.
I will open up a 2-hour block.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Birds with Friends, Day 4 of Miners Week, Thursday evening, 8:05 p.m. Bo Wulf, Zach Berman, Marissa Dunn, uncoupled for this episode. Marissa, how are you? How's Michael? How's he feeling? Has he gotten any calls from agents yet? Not of the football variety, but of the Hollywood variety.
He's doing great. He was like, he couldn't believe all the nice messages he was getting. I'm like, this is our, Birds with Friends
people
community.
lap it up.
They're amazing. All the sickos, like they sent him a lot of nice tweets and DMs and things.
People are mugging A-gaps all over the city right now.
Yeah, so he had such a good time. When I was coming back in my office, he was like, I'll be down the hall if you need me.
I told you, all the
He's got the edge.
All the football jargon and the analysis and the insight was great, but I expected that from him. He had several really good moments of comedic timing where I didn't know he had that in him. I thought he did a great job.
Well, I told him you said that earlier today, and he was like, so Bo thought I was funny.
Yeah, I did.
Like, oh, great. Here we go. You don't need a
Now, I'm no fan of comedy, so I'm not a scholar, so I can't really.
Yeah, as a fan of comedy,
Yeah.
I can attest. Michael he's a natural, right? I mean,
he had a lot of fun. So appreciate you guys having him on because, he likes to talk about this stuff, and it was really cool. So bring your husband to work day. It was very fun. So
Very nice.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
next bring your wives to work day. We're gonna make that happen.
Yeah, Rachel doesn't seem very enthused about that possibility.
I'm not enthused about the possibility.
You're gonna have to work on it.
We'll work on it.
Meanwhile, on the week when everybody's asking Nick Sirianni about, the biggest game of your life as a coach, what do you message to the players? They're playing for a chance to get to the Super Bowl. Do you do anything different this week? And he keeps saying, no man, what is it, Zach? No man is greater than his cherished thoughts and habits.
Yeah.
And as Zach has said, you sink to the level of your preparation.
Yeah.
What a week for Zach Berman. Just banging out story after story this week. I think he's been crushing it. And Zach, just as you said, you've been sinking to the level of your preparation. You've been crushing it.
It's nice of you to compliment me because I was actually going to lead this with complimenting you, and I mean this sincerely.
Oh, here we go. The real love fest.
No, is that like 1 a.m. last night, 1:30, Bo is helping me edit my story, making it significantly better. Like,
oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, it was. I messaged
the
him.
real work.
Yeah, no, but he reconfigured parts of the story, and he made the finished product better. So I am grateful. I want to make sure our audience knows, like, that to me is the definition of a team player. His name's not on that story, but he's part of the success.
I did complain to Josiah about that, but
Zach, would you say that's your love language?
Is what I would say. Words of affirmation are probably my. Emily will tell you
teamwork that he was, showing you at 1:00 in the morning.
Yeah, it genuinely meant a lot to me. It was like one of the first things I said to Emily this morning was like how grateful I was. I mean, that's like selfless within itself, but to do it at 1:30 in the morning.
Now that you're spilling the beans, spilling the tea, it's not so selfless anymore.
What's that?
I'm just. Oh, it's fine. Of course, I would do that for you, Zach.
Yeah.
You're my partner.
But more stories to come, right? I'm excited for a piece Bo has coming out tomorrow. I'm excited for a piece.
I have 5,000 words transcribed on special teams. We'll see how much that gets through.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but one of the players complimented Bo today for the originality of his story ideas. And
Jalen Hurts, that's right.
and then I have a story out actually that came out last minute that I'm looking forward to writing after this. A story from a different athletic writer is out tomorrow on the Eagles. So we got some good stuff coming up, and that doesn't even factor into what's coming up game weekend. So make sure you check out the Athletic. And I'm enjoying these pods, but I don't know how we do this during training camp because I'm running out of words, I guess training camp, we're not writing as much.
So
right?
Obviously Super Bowl week, we would do daily pods if they went on Sunday. What do we think for the interim week? 2 or 3?
I'm going to sound like a football coach when I say this. Like, I'm not there yet. I'm not.
Be where your feet are.
Yeah. That's one of those things. Certainly, if they lose, then we have that, when they clean out the locker.
We may be daily pods if they lose.
No, I'm saying that if they clean out the locker Monday, we're back Monday. If they win, then maybe we take Monday to regroup and we figure out.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So we can decide that. But it's been a good week.
What do you think about hourly pods? We just do 5 minutes every hour. Everybody's got to stay at the top of the hour.
It kind of seems it. But I really like how we've interspersed guests because I think that that definitely enhances our shows.
Well, a good transition, Zach, because at the end of the show today, we will be joined by Tim Kawakami from The Athletic, who covers all things Bay Area. He's got some takes to unfurl on the Niners. He was a little bit, Brock Purdy skeptical during training camp when there was some buzz about him at Niners camp, but he has become a bit of a believer. So we'll talk to him about that and some of the other things that are going on with the Niners as we head into Sunday. But before we get to that, we're going to talk to the Stone Cold Newsman. We're going to do a little quail of the tape. We're going to talk about some of the ways that our minds about this game are maybe changing as the week goes on. We got to start, though, with the Stone Cold Newsman himself. The Eagles practiced for the first time in full today in the bubble. Zach Berman was there to have eyes on everybody.
The Philadelphia Eagles practiced for their NFC Championship game against the San Francisco 49ers, and the big story on the practice field was the return of Avonte Maddox for the first time since Christmas Eve. Maddox with the team in a practice and looked from our eyes like he was running well. He was catching. Spoke to Avonte Maddox after practice. He did not want to say he was going to play, but he said he felt good out there. He said, I'll see how these next few days are going. He hopes to play. And when he does play, you're going to see Avonte Maddox out there, he said. So that is a big boost for the Eagles. Lane Johnson continues to be limited. I should say.
Wait, hold on a second. Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
He said he didn't want to say that he was going to play, but he said when the Eagles play, he's going to be out there.
No, he said he was kind of asked like, will you be, like 100% or that kind of thing. Okay. And he said, when I'm on the field, ain't no holding back. When y'all see me on the field, you'll see Avonte Maddox.
Okay. Got it.
So that's what he was suggesting. I think they basically told him, don't say you're playing. Yeah. Right. So because he kept being like, well, we'll see how these next few days go, but I want to play when I'm out there
tomorrow. But yeah.
Yes. I asked about the injury occurring, and because if you recall in that Christmas Eve game, he made a big sack, and then he did the celebration. And I asked if the injury happened during the celebration, and he was very much adamant that the injury did not occur during the celebration. He said he felt something after the sack, and he looked down, and he thought that his cleat was messed up. So then he jumped and he did the celebration, and he landed. And he's like, oh, this is not my cleat, right? This is my toe.
Jesus Christ.
But he would not say what the injury was.
So gruesome.
He did not say what the injury was. He just said a toe. Someone said, was it a broken toe?
Yeah, his toe fell off and was wiggling around and his cleat loose.
He said a broken toe. He said, if it was a broken toe, I wouldn't be out here. He said, have you ever seen anyone run on a broken toe? It sounds like something like a turf toe.
Yeah, I have. My daughter
So in any event, it's looking good for Maddox. He was a limited participant. So was Lane Johnson. Did not get the chance to speak to Lane Johnson again after practice, but I'm guessing Lane Johnson's going to play. Other than that, they had their normal limited players based on rest. A lot of the veterans were players who've been nursing injuries, but nothing to worry about. I actually think this is one of those rare weeks when all 53 guys are going to be available to play, and the inactives are going to be healthy scratches. And maybe Anthony Harris if they bring him up from practice squad to give him the game check. Other than that, some news and notes. Howie Roseman was named Pro Football Writers Association Executive of the Year. It is his second time winning that award. He is the fourth general manager in NFL history to win the award multiple times. Two of those four, or I should say two of the other three, are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, interestingly enough. That's Bill Polian, Bo's favorite, and George Young.
The Polian, it's Shield.
It's Shield. And then the other executive who
Shield hates each and every one of those four people equally
was Scott Pioli. So George Young, Scott Pioli, Bill Polian, and now Howie Roseman are the four people who've won it.
I never really put together how similar the names Polian and Pioli are until today.
Dynamite dropping.
Scott Pioli.
Other than that, that's most of the news from the NovaCare complex. We spoke to Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox on the podium today.
And TJ Edwards.
Being playoff, and TJ Edwards. I definitely will not slight TJ. And then in addition to that, Nick Sirianni had an additional press conference. During playoff week, they have press conferences every day. I told him as he came in, this is the best part of them making the playoffs, that I get to talk to him. I don't know if he shared a similar sentiment, but it's always good hearing Nick, and that kind of day. And I should also add, it certainly sounds, based on the reports from San Francisco, that there's nothing to worry about with their running backs, but Christian McCaffrey continues to miss practice. So something
Elijah Mitchell didn't practice either, right?
Yeah, so something to monitor out of San Francisco. Back to you in the studio, Bo.
Thanks so much, Zach. Let's start with Avonte, because I would, at this point, seeing the way that he was running around and being a full participant, I would be pretty shocked if he doesn't play on Sunday. So, assuming that he plays, what is your expectation for what we're going to see in the secondary?
Great question, because as we've seen, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's look good there. But Avonte Maddox has been awesome. You had a good write-up during the bye week of every player on the 53-man roster. And I think for Avonte, that's what you said. Like, he's been awesome when he's been on the field, right? And it is true. So my guess is Avonte back in the slot, CJ back at safety, and Reed Blankenship comes off the field. Unless they use Avonte situationally because he's missed a month. It's easy to remember that one because Christmas Eve's the 24th. Today's the 26th, right? So he's missed the month. He's been gone a month and 2 days here. But I still think you play your best 11, and that's Avonte in the slot and Gardner-Johnson at safety.
Well, here's the thing. They really have some options, because remember the game, like right before Avonte got hurt, he was doing the safety thing in base. He was at safety. Like, if they wanted, they can play him at safety and keep Gardner-Johnson in the slot.
That would be interesting.
I'm also curious, in the interest of like keeping their best 11 guys on the field, is there a situation where they lean on dime a little bit more and have Reed Blankenship in the box as sort of like a pseudo linebacker instead of Kaiser White? Because I think you could make a case that Reed Blankenship is better right now than Kaiser White. I know that that's not like if this death lineup of the 21 personnel that the Niners have, you don't want to go super light because they'll run the ball on you. But I don't know. I'm really curious to see how Gannon's going to deploy these guys, because he could stay chalk, or like you can I'm thinking about who do you trust the most to react to all the motion, right? Who knows the rules best of the defense? And I don't know that my answer is Gardner-Johnson at safety in that situation. I think I might rather have him at nickel, and I think I might trust Maddox and Blankenship more on the back end.
Well, that Gardner-Johnson Maddox lineup that you just brought up, that's the first time I've thought of it, where they switch spots. And it's actually a really good idea, especially if you're talking about using Gardner-Johnson in almost like a matchup role with McCaffrey type. I mean, Maddox, I'm not saying Gardner-Johnson's not smart out there. Maddox is been like he knows this defense so well. He's been in it longer. I could see that. That's an interesting thought.
I think we're going to see a lot of the 5-1-5. I think that's going to be what we see the most of with the defense on Sunday. But I don't know what that, and there could be different packages of who the 5 on the back end are.
Yeah, I lean less toward what you're saying about this like heavy nickel where you have Blankenship in that Kaiser White spot.
It's just an idea.
Yeah, because I don't know how Blankenship would play in that specific role.
Right. We haven't seen that look.
And I'm less bearish on Kaiser White than you seem to be. But perhaps more bearish on Reed Blankenship than you seem to be. Although, funny aside, so my son is bringing in the game. I guess I'm giving a personal note here. My son's bringing in the Eagles game book for like a show and tell tomorrow, and he did this last week, but he doesn't really know anything about football yet. But he knows they have a player on their team named Reed. My son's name is Reed, and so he had me open the book up to the Reed Blankenship page, and he wants to show his class Reed on the Eagles because he's Reed. So in a kindergarten class,
it's also good because he's also the youngest white guy on the team. So there's an extra connection,
and it's also Reed B. Right?
There you go.
Just like I should actually ask. It'd be weird if I asked Reed Blankenship his middle name, but if they had all three initials the same. But in any event, there's a kindergarten class that is going to have Reed Blankenship media guide page for show and tell. So if anyone wants to find out if anyone in the class wants to, I think the page, I haven't read it in a few weeks, but he's from Athens, Alabama. He's same hometown as Quez Watkins. He went to a small school. It's in there, and I think he grew up an Alabama fan. That might be in the bio. It's been a bit of time, but
all right, Zach. 20 questions on what his middle name is.
Do you know what it is?
I do.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't know if this is
what 20 questions is for.
Is this really productive podcasting?
Yes.
20 questions on Reed Blankenship's middle name.
Yeah.
Okay, is it like a common name?
Yes. Yeah, Marissa's about to smoke you again.
Does it begin with an S?
Yes.
Oh.
It does?
Yes.
He has the same three initials as my son.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
What is your son's
gotta
middle
go
name?
wake Reed up and tell him that.
I'm not waking him up.
What is your son's middle name?
Spencer.
Okay. That doesn't count as a guess, but it could be Spencer still.
So it starts with Scott.
That's correct. Marissa's unbelievable.
I love this game.
Crushing it. Well, there you go. Reed SB. Yeah. SB for Super Bowl.
There you go.
I'm an objective reporter here, but my son's he's allowed to get into it in his class. So
yes, of course. Your son does not have to take on your objectivity.
Okay.
At what, 4 years old?
He's 5 years old.
Almost
5.
6, right?
6.
All right, Zach. We had our session with Michael yesterday, and we talked to Dan McQuaid on Tuesday. We talked about how I said on Tuesday I was feeling like pretty heavy that I thought the Eagles were going to win this game, and you said you sort of agreed with me. Now that we are 2 days later, how do you feel? What's your temperature on the matchup at this point?
So I think it depends on how the game is played. Okay. And what I mean by that, and that might seem like an obvious comment. If the game is played the way that Cowboys-Niners game was played last week, I think it advantaged Niners. If this is a fourth quarter game, low scoring fourth quarter game, I think that plays into the Niners' hands. And then I think that the Niners can come out with an upset. If the Eagles can get off to an early lead, I think they win this game. And because I think that if they can force Brock Purdy into being a drop back quarterback, right, which might seem like an obvious statement to make, but then you neutralize some of the play action in that situation. Your pass rush gets at him. The crowd's into the game. All of a sudden, Brock Purdy's arm needs to beat you. You can't hide Purdy in that spot. Then I think the Eagles win. And so I guess it's a roundabout way of saying I'll have a better answer at the end of the first quarter of the game, which you might be able to say in every game. But my point being that if this is a low-scoring game, this is an ugly, low-scoring game, it favors the 49ers. If the Eagles score early, I think the Eagles win. I don't think the Niners are scoring with the Eagles into like the high 20s or 30s. I think if the Niners win this game, it's like the Cowboys game last week. It's played in the teens.
I'm not sure that I agree that like a fourth quarter game necessarily. I mean, there are a million factors, right? But I am focused on like Kyle Shanahan's game management in a tight game like that. And I don't know that he's got the game management stones to make it happen in the fourth quarter of a tight game. And then it's like a little bit more pressure on Purdy. I don't know. I mean, these are all unknowable things. I don't know. I am sort of feeling like I fully acknowledge that this game is close to a toss-up, and there's every possibility that the Eagles turn the ball over a couple times, and it's a 9-possession game, and that's the end of that. But I think that if the Eagles do not beat themselves, I think if the Eagles don't have any turnovers, I would be shocked if they lose this game. That's sort of how I feel. I think if they line up and like both teams are their best, or both teams are playing at a similar level, I think the Eagles win the game.
I'm going to call you out for a second here, okay? Because you say I make this obvious statement that let me tell you at the end of the first quarter, and then I'll tell you how the game's going to go. You say if they don't turn over the ball, well, of course. How many times do teams lose games?
Yeah, but you're telling me if the Eagles jump out to an early lead, I think they're going to win the game. I think that's a little bit different. I'm not saying if the Eagles win the turnover battle. I say if neither team turns the ball over, I feel good about the Eagles' chance.
You're saying if the Eagles don't turn the ball over, they're going to win this game.
If the turnover battle is equal, I think the Eagles win the game.
The Eagles have 3 losses this year, and in each of those games, they had 4 turnovers in 2 of them, and then I think 2 turnovers in the other.
When the Eagles go up by 30 points, they haven't lost yet this year. What do you want me to say?
I wasn't talking about that. I was here. Let's say if they're up by 10 points in the first half,
of course they would have a huge advantage in win probability if they were up by 10 points.
Okay.
That's those are not equal.
I would probably argue that they are equal. I think there's.
You think being up by 10 points and being equal in the turnover battle is an equal edge in win probability? No way.
I
Eagles
don't have
are
the data.
favored by 2.5 points, right? And right now the turnover battle is equal. If the Eagles were up by 10 points, they would not be favored to win the game by 2.5 points.
They're facing a team that's number 1 in the league in turnover differential.
Yeah,
so you're saying 3. If they don't turn over the ball against the team that's number 1 in turnover differential, then they're going to win this game. Yeah, no crap, right? I was about to say no shit, but no crap, right? So
yes, anyway. 4 pods in. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I see it, right? I think we're both making obvious statements, but no, I do agree with you. I think that if they're turning over the ball, they're playing into the Niners' hands. The reason I'm saying that's obvious is because the only indicator really of Eagles' losses this year has basically been turnovers, right? That's like the common denominator in their 3 losses. It has been turning the ball over. So yeah, I would venture to say that if they're turning the ball over in this game, it does not bode well for their chances of winning. I don't think because I also don't think this is going to be a high possession game, right? This is
I think that's part of the concern if you are worried about the Eagles.
Yeah, so if you turn over, if you waste possessions, or if you give them, and are we allowed to say that we taped the Tim Kawakami interview earlier? So
No, why would you do that?
Well, you have an Eagles backdrop in it.
Yeah,
so
okay,
it's
yeah,
You're
so
in a literal different location. So
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So when Tim was talking about, and I guess this is a tease, the field position for the Niners, and I talked about this actually on Monday in our initial thoughts on the show. In Mike Sando's column on Monday, he had that great note about the average starting field position, and yeah, if you're giving the Niners short fields, that's huge for this offense. What you want the Niners to have to do is drive long fields with their rookie quarterback on the road. And so turnovers almost by definition, unless you're turning the ball over in your scoring zone. And when you do that, then you're taking points off the board for you. In any way you slice it, turnovers are going to be a horrible outcome in this game.
okay. I still think I'm correct about the argument, but we can move on. One thing that we sort of danced around yesterday that seems to have become a talking point. I am not worried about the 49ers like running the ball all over the Eagles, even though the Eagles don't have this great, rushing defense by DVOA. And we've been over the splits pre and post Linval Joseph. Like if I'm an Eagles fan, I am much more worried about play action over the middle of the field. They're getting Kaiser White in space. Deebo Samuel gets a step and can bust a big play. I understand that there's a path that they could control the clock and limit possessions, and that is a concern. But I don't think, especially with these two running backs banged up, that it's not something. I don't think the Eagles are going to go into this game knowing that the Niners want to run and they're going to get run over. I don't see that.
Yeah, good point. And I think you put it really well in the beat writer roundtable that we had Wednesday. That I think Jonathan Gannon's probably more worried about play action and passes to the running back and maybe short passes in the middle of the field when the yards after the catch are a problem than the Niners running all over them. And I also agree that there's this misnomer, or I don't know if I'm using the word correctly, misconception about.
Is there a Mr. Conception?
About the Commanders game being this template. The Commanders ran the ball they had a lot of yards in that game. They also had 3.5 yards per carry or something like that.
The Eagles had 4 turnovers.
The Eagles would take
nonsense.
that. It was the turnovers, and then I do think time of possession matters. The Eagles have a high scoring offense, right? So if you're converting, I think like third down conversions matter more than total rushing yards. If you're converting third downs at a high rate and you're keeping the Eagles off the field, and when you're converting third downs at a high rate, I'm assuming you're not converting 3rd and 12s, right? I'm assuming that you're getting 3rd and manageables, which neutralizes the Eagles pass rush to a certain extent when you're in 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3. So the game flow is different there. So yeah, I agree that I don't think the 49ers run offense is the major concern here. I think what you're worried about is maybe the run bleeding into play action and how that affects play action, because this can be an effective play action offense. And then, like I said, third down conversions. If you're in 3rd and 2 and 3rd and 3, then play actions, that's more effective. You can run the ball out of those formations. So that's why I keep going back to like situational football. You need to get them in 3rd and plus and not 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3.
Well, it's interesting to think about like the defensive splits for the Eagles, right? They're the number 1 DVOA defense against the pass, and whatever it is against the run. And yet, like if they were going up against Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, I would be terrified. And not just because quarterback matters more, but because the way that we've seen them lose is, like you're saying, like consistent short yardage completions, guys who can maintain drives. And this Niners offense, like if the Eagles can play the Jonathan Gannon like ideal game, if they can limit explosive plays and force the Niners to move the ball down the field and maintain those possessions, which I think is what the Niners want to do. And so it's this interesting matchup where like Gannon, I think is sort of inviting what Shanahan wants to do, But if you're going to force Brock Purdy to, complete 3rd and 5 all the time, maybe that's what the Niners want. But I think that that's sort of okay for the Eagles. I think they're willing to accept that. Like, Brock Purdy, yeah, he's second in EPA per dropback since entering the starting lineup, right? But do we really believe that? And like in the pressure of the NFC Championship game against a really good defense, the second good defense that he's played in this atmosphere, is that going to hold up? I think that's sort of the challenge of the game, and it's just knowing what the Eagles' actual strengths are by the numbers, but also having watched them and all of us having experienced this defense, it's a little bit disparate in terms of what you would actually want to see from the opposing offense, I think.
Well, let me ask you this about Purdy, because we did talk about him on Monday's pod, and
because you and I did invent him, yeah.
And we're gonna get some insight from Tim. But I am curious because we've had the chance now to see him in recent weeks. The 49ers have been on in their own time slots. Context independent here. How would you, if you didn't know anything about him and you were just watching film of him as a quarterback, would you be concerned, or have you seen enough reason to doubt him on film this year?
I mean, from what I've watched, last week was the only time he's really looked shaky. And there were certainly plays last week where he got away with some stuff. And, maybe you think that was an outlier based on how he did in the first 5 or 6 games. Or maybe you think that this was the reaction to playing the first really quality defense that he has played. So I think there's reason to be a little bit skeptical. I mean, like the base rate of him being a 7th round rookie, I think the 7th round matters less than the rookie.
Mm-hmm. Well said. That's a really good way of framing it. Yeah,
he hasn't. It's like we talk about with all these guys with Jalen Hurts. You got to build up the reps, right?
Yeah.
He's still building up the reps, and he had he played a ton in college, and I think there's a reason that starts in college is like somewhat predictive. But yeah, I would be skeptical about him going into Philadelphia against a good defense in a hostile environment and being as good as he was in the regular season. I think there is reason to be a little bit skeptical.
By the way, now that you just said starts in college can be predictive, credit to Andy Staples on The Athletic, had a good piece today. And the premise of the piece is like who's the Brock Purdy in this year's draft. But the top of the piece was about conditions that make Brock Purdy who he was this year. And he talked about the starts that he had. And there was a quote in there, I think, from Georgia's offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, where he kind of threw water on the idea of like a backup quarterback, benefiting from practice reps, because I think the quote was basically, in practice, all you're doing as a backup is just reading the card, right? Like you need to have meaningful on-field reps to actually get that experience. And that's why starting is so valuable. And that's been the case with Purdy. The other things he talked about, the pro style offense. Actually, his offensive coordinator at Iowa State was Tom Manning, who was the tight ends coach for the Colts when Sirianni was there under Frank Reich, and also was a teammate of Sirianni's at Mount Union. And you can find Tom Manning in Bo's outstanding piece when Sirianni was hired on. It was like an oral history of Sirianni's time at Mount Union.
Purple Mountain Pipeline or Purple Rail Pipeline.
So in that piece, so Tom Manning's offense helped. And then the other condition that they discussed that I actually I thought was interesting too was that he wasn't playing with high level, or like he wasn't playing with elite NFL talent relative to an Ohio State quarterback or an Alabama quarterback or an Oklahoma quarterback. Now, Jalen Hurts in this game is awesome, and he played in college with elite talent every year. But basically, the thought was that a 7th round quarterback, a quarterback in the environment Purdy was in, has to have certain conditions about him to succeed that that might not be the case if you're playing with 1st round picks and 2nd round picks at your skill spots.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the the Tom Manning connection, Zach, because I saw a really interesting nugget from Peter Schrager of NFL Network mentioning that the Eagles actually have 2 guys on the staff who were at Iowa State with Brock Purdy. Good,
Yeah.
good nugget, good dig up by Schrags.
Well, it was a good segment that Peter had on the football show this morning, but it was also on The Athletic yesterday. You can check that out. And credit EJ Smith asked the question. I mean, it's not like I was the only person who knew about Tyler Scudder and DK McDonald. EJ asked in Tuesday's press conference to Gannon what kind of resource DK McDonald has been this week, and Gannon spoke about how they talked about how they've already used McDonald as a resource. And if I can give a plug too, I had a story.
Here we go.
I had a story when Sirianni was hired where I actually quoted DK McDonald when he was an assistant still at Iowa State, because McDonald was a groomsman in Sirianni's wedding, and also they lived together when they were coaches at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. So if you really want to know a DK McDonald nugget, he went to or he coached at IUP with Sirianni, and they lived together in that. So
that's great stuff. Now, also credit to Schrager did apologize in the tweet thread. He said he was sorry. He should have known that Zach had it.
No,
so
Schrager
this is not a full Tessitore situation. He's off the hook.
Yeah, but I actually would have liked the pub on Good Morning Football. I mean, if they could have plugged.
I think they actually did a worse thing. But when I actually don't remember if it was Schrager or Kyle Brandt.
Kyle Brandt. I think it was. I think it was.
Now
Kyle
that
Brandt.
was worse. That was worse. They did like the best 5 stories of preseason, and one of them was Michael Dunn, and I didn't give any love to the Michael Dunn story.
Yeah,
they had all the transactions too. Like they had all
the transactions.
Yeah,
I mean, a little bit of love, please.
Yeah, that's I always appreciate the national announcer who gives credit to the beat writer.
Give us some crumbs,
for the story. There was a really good story. There was a really good story on The Athletic last weekend by Jason Quick, our outstanding Blazer, NBA reporter, and it was about the Blazers writer out in Portland, and it was about Justice Winslow and kind of what he had to overcome and endure in recent years. And Stan Van Gundy gave a shout out on the ESPN broadcast and mentioned The Athletic and Quick. So yeah, I always like when they do that.
Stan was spitting.
I don't get the reference.
No, okay. Sorry. All right, Zach, let's before we get to Tim Kawakami, let's do our little quill of the tape here, a little throwback, since we got a daily pod run down, very matter of fact, the position by position breakdown, how these teams match up against each other. And obviously it's not quarterback versus quarterback, but this is just to get a general sense of things.
Mm-hmm.
On one side at quarterback, Zach, you got Brock Purdy, who is completing, including the playoffs, 65.9% of his passes, 8.4 yards per attempt, 0.21 EPA per dropback. That's second best in the league. On the other side, you got Jalen Hurts. He's completing 66.5% of his passes for 8 yards per attempt. He's just 0.009 EPA per dropback, but obviously that does not factor in everything he does in the run game as a planned runner. It does include scrambles, but it doesn't include designed runs. Who do you give the edge to at quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy?
Jalen Hurts. He's a bona fide MVP candidate for a reason. I think, this is not a controversial take. Jalen Hurts.
I don't think we gave enough because the story had just come out on Tuesday. Your story about the mind of Jalen Hurts, the triple threat. And we have talked about it, but he really has improved this year. And it's the same thing that we were just sort of alluding to with Brock Purdy being a rookie. The bank of reps that he is getting in year 3 has really, like, you have seen that. What's the word I'm looking for? You have seen it really improve. It's taken a drastic jump.
Sure.
I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of. Anyway, before the snap, he does so much for this offense and seems to be much more advanced than he was last year.
Yeah, and I spoke to Brian Johnson for that story, and there were 2 things that jumped out to me in speaking to Brian, because I really wanted to. I didn't just want to say he's using his mind. Like, what does that look like, and how is that translated to the field? Well, the thing Brian emphasized is that you can really tell in between snaps with the information that they're bringing back to you, right? When you pull up the tablet and the quarterback already knows what he's spot on about what he saw, about what they're doing, about what he's supposed to do. He said that's an indicator of how the mind's working on the field. And that's been the case between drives. And then so I spoke to him after the Week 14 Giants game, and he pointed like right away to 2 plays in the Giants game. One we all remember, which was that 4th and 7, I think it was, to Devontae Smith when Giants were sending 5. They were in man coverage. He read the coverage. He made a pre-snap read. Devontae talked about it after the game. He made a route adjustment, and it turned into a touchdown. Now, Devontae made an outstanding catch, right? That could have been intercepted, but still, it was the right adjustment at the line of scrimmage. And then the other one was earlier in the game. There was just like a check down to Zach Pascal, but apparently on that play, they had something else dialed up, and like the coverage just made it so that wasn't the case. And Jalen made a really good decision going to Pascal, moving the chains, and Sirianni brought that play up too, unprompted, as an example of like the types of reads and that Jalen's making. So yeah, he's winning games with his mind in addition to his arm and his legs.
Zach, before we get to running back, there is one bit of news that I think we should just unpack just a little bit, and that is Frank Reich named the Panthers head coach because that was a potential landing spot for Shane Steichen, and also because Frank Reich becoming a head coach means that he might be looking to do a little bit of poaching from the Eagles staff. So even if right now it looks like maybe the Eagles are going to escape without potentially losing Steichen or Gannon, or at least it looks like Steichen right now is probably not going to get hired. I think Gannon very much in the mix for that Houston job. Yeah. Even if they keep Steichen, it seems like maybe they might. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose some of the underlings to Reich staff. I think of like a Patullo, for instance. Would he want to go there be Reich's offensive coordinator or something like that?
That's a really good point. It's something to watch. In addition to the fact that guys are always looking for promotions, as they should. I don't know this for a fact with the Eagles staff. So I suppose I'm speculating here, but most assistant coach contracts are 2-year deals, and so there's more mobility after that second year.
Good point.
Because if you're not under contract, you can't be blocked, right? So this has come up a few times. Now, sometimes people don't. Coaches will always let their position coaches go for promotion. Sometimes they don't. And if you remember John DeFilippo, after the 2016 season, I believe the Jets wanted to hire him as offensive coordinator, but the Eagles didn't want to let him go. His contract, the next year he was able to go to Minnesota as their offensive coordinator. Jonathan Gannon, when he came to Philly as the defensive coordinator, he could have gone to other places as the defensive coordinator, but he couldn't be blocked because I believe his contract was expiring. I don't think. So because it's the second year of the staff, there also might be guys who are able to leave because of their contract. So they could, even if it's a lateral move or a move to just a title change, there's always that possibility.
And I would also say, knowing the Sirianni-Reich relationship and knowing that Reich let Sirianni take some people from the staff, he's not going to angrily put his foot down if Frank wants to give a guy a bit of a bump. I would imagine that he's going to be more willing to, he would let somebody go to Frank more likely than he would let somebody go to Shane. To Shane. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, Eagles up 1-0. They got the quarterback. Running back, Miles Sanders, 1,269 yards rushing this season on 4.9 yards per carry. Christian McCaffrey, a little bit less, 1,139 yards rushing on 4.7 yards per carry. Miles Sanders, his next-gen stats, like rushing, the percentage of his rushing yards over expected, 44.7%. That's 10th in the league. Christian McCaffrey, 39.2. That's 30th in the league. Maybe tilting a little bit in Miles Sanders' favor. However, Christian McCaffrey had 85 catches for 741 yards. Miles Sanders, 20 catches for 78 yards.
Yeah.
I can't even remember 20 that I'm shocked he even had that many.
I'm going Christian McCaffrey here. I think Christian McCaffrey, when he's healthy, is
Banged up though, not healthy.
I think Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the NFL. And
No, come on, get out of here.
okay, I mean, you feel that strongly against it?
Now Christian McCaffrey is a former Grouse Award winner. I think that Christian McCaffrey as a runner is very overrated.
Well, there's more to the position than simply taking handoffs. We're
Well,
not
that's
in
why I
1983
qualified
here.
as a runner.
Okay.
I think he is not that dangerous of a runner.
I think
I
overall
think the
package,
entire value that makes him good is him as a receiver.
I don't think that's the entire value, but I think that certainly enhances his
think he's
value.
fine.
I've said this on the podcast before.
He's like a rich man's Kenny Gainwell.
I've had someone tell me before the 2017 draft that if he just had a wide receiver next to his name, he would have been a first round pick still. Like
Yeah,
that's how
that's
good he was. Okay. I think Christian McCaffrey. I mean, all of a sudden you're pro Miles Sanders. We had a podcast earlier this year when you said the Eagles need a real running back.
Yeah.
And now you're taking Miles Sanders over Christian McCaffrey.
I didn't say I would take him. I'm just saying,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm going with McCaffrey here.
He's
But,
no Elijah
but,
Mitchell.
but we should accelerate this game, by the way. Like
Okay.
we're only on running back since 8:51.
Yeah.
Okay.
The good news is we're not keeping Tim Kawakami waiting.
Yeah.
The interview has already happened.
I have writing to do tonight.
So
You
do
have
I.
writing to do. Yeah. So
We're trying to entertain the people.
as if the 5 hours, 6 hours of content so far this week is not sufficient enough. Let's keep rolling here.
This is part of our job too.
You got it.
All right, we'll give the Niners running back, but keep in mind those guys are banged up. It might not be so simple. Wide receiver. The Niners have Brandon Ayuk, 78 catches for 1,015 yards this season, 1.87 yards per route run. That was 28th in the league. Deebo Samuel, 56 catches for 632 yards, 1.86 yards per route run. That was 29th in the league. He also had 42 carries for 232 yards. The Eagles have Devontae Smith, 95 catches for 1,196 yards, 2.0 yards per route run. That was 19th in the league. And then there's A.J. Brown, the cantankerous A.J. Brown, who's going to demand the ball against the Niners outside corners. 2.53 yards per route run. That was third in the league. 88 catches for 1,496 yards. You've also got Quez Watkins and Zach Pascal. The Niners have Jawan Jennings, the big fella from Tennessee. Zach, who do you take at wide receiver? And don't give me any of this push nonsense.
I'm not doing push. I'm taking the Eagles. I think the
Yes.
Eagles have a top 3 wide receiver combination in the league. I think the only teams that I would even say are in the conversation for above them would be Miami and Cincinnati. But you can make good arguments that the Eagles are equal to or above those teams. I'm very bullish on AJ. I'm very bullish on Devontae. I really like this Eagles group, not taking anything away from Deebo, nor Brandon Ayuk, but I don't think Ayuk's at the level of Devontae, and I think that AJ is the best receiver in this game.
I agree with you. I think they get the edge. Tight end, George Kittle, 1.8 yards per route run. That's fourth among tight ends. Dallas Goedert, 1.87 yards per route run. That's third among tight ends. Both good blockers. One of them a little bit less sane than the other. Who do you got?
George Kittle. And I think Goddard's a good. I mean, like, I don't think Goddard takes a backseat to many players in this league, but I would take Kittle over him. I think Kittle's been he's shown in terms of his ability to block, his ability to catch, his ability to have yards after the catch. He might be the best. I think Kelsey's the best pass catching tight end in the league for sure. But Kittle is not taking a backseat to many players.
I don't know. I think this is pretty close. I think you can make a case for Dallas Goedert.
Okay.
But I think a lot of his production is like the way that they use him. So I guess I'll go Kittle just for the sake of the game to keep it close. But honestly, really, I think I might rather have Dallas Goedert.
Okay.
Just for like sanity's sake. Offensive line. Niners obviously have Trent Williams, maybe the best left tackle in football. They were 11th in sack rate this season, 4th in Football Outsiders adjusted line yards. They've got a bit of a potential weakness in Mike McGlinchey at right tackle.
Watch yourself.
The interior is fine. The Eagles have the best right tackle in football in Lane Johnson, although he's playing through a torn adductor. You've got the best center in the league in Jason Kelsey, solid guards in Landon Dickerson and Isaac Sayamalu, and Jordan Mailata, who has not been quite as good as expected. They are 24th in sack rate, although obviously that probably has more to do with the style of play on the quarterback. 6th in Football Outsiders adjusted line yards. Who do you got offensive line?
Eagles offensive line. I mean, there's a reason why every player on this offensive line is either a Pro Bowl or a Pro Bowl alternate. I like this group. They're coached by perhaps the best offensive line coach in the NFL. We had an offensive line expert on the show last night who literally told us what makes this group special. And so who am I to disagree with Michael Dunn? So give me the Eagles.
Yes, one of the 2 best offensive lines in the league, along with the Cleveland Browns. The edge goes to the Eagles. Defensive tackle, Zach. Linval Joseph, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Dominican Sue, Milton Williams, or Eric Armstead and the Niners crew. Who do you got?
Probably the Eagles based on the depth of the group. Fletcher Cox had a line today that they don't look at it as like their starting lineup or their backups. It's just like 1 and 1A. And yeah, the depth, especially when you added Sue and Joseph to a group that Hargrave, we heard Michael talk last night about just what Hargrave provide, the way he challenges offenses. Cox has done it for 11 years now. You have Sue, you have Joseph, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams. I really like the depth of the group. As much as I like Armstead, the depth of the Eagles defensive tackles gives them the edge.
I think I agree with you. Give them the edge. Speaking of edge, we go to the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Bosa, probably the best edge in the game. But then the Eagles might have the next 3 best. If you go Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham versus Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, who apparently is going to be given the green light to play if he's healthy from Kyle Shanahan. We're going to ask Tim Kawakami about that as well. Seems like a nice thing for the Niners to do, just juju-wise, make sure that everybody can root against them in good faith.
So, you know what here? This is hard because Bosa he's been the best defensive player.
Do you take the best one or do you take the better depth?
Yeah. And the thing about it is that one edge rusher, an elite player like Bosa can change a game. We saw that frankly last September when he had 2 sacks against the Eagles. He can change a game. But I'm going with the depth here. I've seen time and time again the benefit of rolling through those bodies, right? Brandon Graham, first time in his career with double-digit sacks in a year that he's not starting. That's because of the way they're using him. I think Josh Sweat, that New Orleans game kind of took off some of the shine. When I said the New Orleans game, he had a very scary injury that game. But if you take out that game when he left in the first quarter, he's had sacks now in, I think, 6 straight games or 7 straight games. I mean, he's been on a roll. And even if, as Michael said, Andrew Thomas did a good job against him, he still had a strip sack, right? And that's the thing with that position is that you make one rush where you have a big sack and a strip like that can change the course of a game. So I think the Eagles' depth there, and that's not even mentioning Hassan Reddick, who is very close to the category of Nick Bosa, at least in production. So give me the Eagles' edge rushers.
Okay. I think I would agree with you. Give it to the Eagles. Linebacker. Now this one's close. You got TJ Edwards and Kaiser White with Nakobe Dean behind him, or Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, this is probably the spot on the field where there's the biggest delta, right? And
back, but
yeah, okay, yeah. But
I think I'd probably go Eagles here.
The 49ers have such an edge here. And I thought Tim Kawakami you'll hear him talk about what these 49ers linebackers give them. But in Philly, where there's so much talk about linebackers, right? You don't have to worry about the middle of the field in San Francisco. And they're not just trying to get by. Like, those guys changed the game. And so, yeah, there's a big delta there. Fred Warner's awesome. Greenlaw's playing really well. So give me the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, this is not close. Yeah. This is this is what makes their defense so good. This is why they can play that penetrating style that Michael talked about last night. Yeah, total blowout. Corner. Eagles.
I mean,
this is like not quite as lopsided as linebacker, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bradbury and Slay Bradbury, whichever one you want to name first, I think it's the best cornerback combination in the NFL. And I think we've seen evidence of it. The way they played against the Giants last week showed a lot of that was because they were tight in coverage. These guys are top of their game right now. And so give me Slay and Bradbury.
The big question in this game seems to be whether the Niners are going to travel their corners or whether they're going to stick them on sides. I was listening to the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. Good prep as always with Fran.
Not
Duffy.
Invest Like the Best.
Yeah, no, I was actually listening to. I was trying to do my job and inform my own opinions as opposed to finding out what Daryl Morey's galaxy brain take on soccer is.
Yeah, I was trying to stimulate my mind, right? So that's always important.
Stimulating something.
Don't know what that means.
Neither do I. And the guest, whose name escapes me, from the Niners, was talking about how Diamador Lenoir has Jimmy Ward was talking about how he does better when he doesn't have to travel with Charvarius. Like if Charvarius toward travels, that means Lenoir has to travel, and Lenoir doesn't do as well like that. So they're better off when they're static side by side. However, like matchup wise, you think it would make more sense to have Charvarius Ward on AJ Brown, but we'll see. And I think that, it really does seem like we can get to this tomorrow, but the Eagles making plays on the outside is going to be this whole game on offense. How good of a game can AJ Brown and Devontae Smith have against those two?
Yeah, I actually saw something similar earlier this week. It might have been the Athletics, David Lombardi. If it's not, I apologize, where they said the game that AJ Brown had against San Francisco last year compelled them to go after a cornerback like Ward. I thought that was interesting. Brown had a huge game against them. You mentioned Lenoir. He was in coverage, I believe, when Quez Watkins had the 91-yard reception last year.
That's right.
I got caught up with Quez today. He, of course, watched that film this week. Yeah, so the Eagle, the thing with Jimmy Ward, from what I understand, is that
are you Jimmy Ward?
When he was injured, they put Deshaun Gibson in at safety, and Gibson played so well that it compelled them when Ward returned to use him more in the slot.
Yes.
So that's been a change for the 49ers than in past years. Actually, if you bring kind of everything full circle here, the 49er safeties were always Ward and Jaquiski Tartt. And Jaquiski Tartt. I once spent a Friday during the summer grading that Jaquiski Tartt signing. Remember that? Texting you, should we grade the move here? What should the grade be? And
what was the grade?
I forget, but I think I think it was Eagles summer signings, probably. And I think I might have compared it to Corey Graham. That did not come to fruition.
And so, I think you might be right. And I think I gave it a what's his face? The Cowboys guy who got cut and then came back and then talked smack on the team after he got cut.
Skandrick? You gave it Skandrick? Yeah. Okay.
I think so. Which actually turned out to be a pretty good guess because not only did he not make the team, but he then talked smack in getting cut.
Yeah, I think I was debating between Cyprien and Graham.
Cyprien wasn't a summer signing. He was a trade. Oh, no, he was. You're right. I'm sorry. Then they traded him.
And then they traded him to Atlanta. Yeah.
Howie's best trade.
It wasn't Howie's best trade, but yeah.
It was. So who do you got? Tayshaun Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga, the All-Pro, or Marcus Epps, and who knows who it's going to be? Reed Blankenship, CJ Gardner-Johnson, Avonte Maddox?
Yeah, I'll go San Francisco's combination here, especially with the way Hufanga's playing. And Gibson's been really steady there.
Can be had deep though.
What's that?
It can be had deep.
Okay, I'll still take San Francisco's. So where does that leave us?
I guess. Well, we're not done yet.
Okay.
Head coach. Who's gonna game plan better? Who's gonna manage the game better? Nick Sirianni or Kyle Shanahan? Who you got?
So this one's tough. Like Nick has been awesome this year. He's been absolutely awesome. I tweeted it on Monday. I said it on the pod the other, I think I tweeted on Sunday. I said it on the pod Saturday night. Like he knows what the F he's doing, as he said after the game. He has this team ready. He's so good situationally, schematically. But I mean, Shanahan's been to this conference championship 3 times now in 4 years. He's coached the team to the Super Bowl. He's won conference championships as a coordinator. He won a conference championship as a coordinator. So I guess I'll give the edge to that 49ers coaching staff because I've seen them win big games before, and I haven't seen it yet from the Eagles. I mean, they beat the Giants last week, but this is a big spot here. So then, as I say that's nothing against Sirianni, who's been awesome.
He's not watching anymore. He watched the first 10 minutes.
I'll give the edge to someone who I've seen do it.
I think you can make the case that I wouldn't argue that Kyle Shanahan has the better body of work. That's fine. Who do I trust more in running this game? I trust the Eagles coaching staff. Okay. I trust them to be aggressive and go for it when it matters. And I think that, as I've been talking about all week, I think that can make a big difference in the game. D'Amico Ryans or Jonathan Gannon. This is going to be tough for you. This is like Sophie's choice for you, Zach. Now we got a real Sophie's choice.
I'll go D'Amico here. Right? He's
all right.
His defense is ranked higher, right?
It's all about rankings for you.
I mean, the eye test shows it. His defense
sure
play
does.
well. He's got comparable experience as a coordinator here, right? So yeah, I mean that again, like just because you choose one doesn't mean you choose against the other. I think D'Amico. I mean, D'Amico was named today a Pro Football Writers Association assistant coach of the year. So
yeah, so you're giving it to him just on the accolade?
I literally just gave you 90 seconds before I mentioned the accolade. So
for you, it's 6-6. For me, it's 7-5. So you're gonna have to break the tie with special teams.
So who can you name? Or is that the thing?
Yeah.
Trivia question here.
Or is it an Al you know?
Al, you know. What is the hometown of Robbie Gould?
State College?
No, he did go to Penn State though. It's a place that Marissa, I think, likes to go to, but not the actual place.
Canton, Ohio. Oh, I've heard this. It's like Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania.
He's from Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania. Yes,
which is like in the boonies.
Oh, hold on. I activated Siri somehow.
I think that's so funny. I didn't know a Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania existed, but always when I was driving back from Ohio, I'd always see a sign that said
Jersey Shore.
And I always thought it was like telling me how to get to the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, that's the home of Robbie Gould.
Funny.
So I'm pretty mind blown right now that was not the Jersey Shore I was thinking.
That's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
And you go through Blue Ball and all the other funny ones in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Zach, before we get going, there is one big upset here that we've made it through almost all of the 4th day of daily podcasts for an Eagles-49ers matchup. And as your cousin Lee pointed out, until this second, we have yet to mention Deebo Samuel's badonkadonk.
I'm staying away from this one, Bob.
The junk in the trunk. How can we go this long? Maybe that's the quill of the tape.
No, but so as we're doing this position breakdown, there is something I don't think you're giving enough credit to here. Okay. And I think Jimmy Kempski, I used to make light of the former Washington football team's name right there. They used to have the skin tangibles, right? Well, and it was always like Washington always got they always had the edge. Right, remember that? But no, the intangibles matter here too. The Eagles have home field advantage, okay, and they have one more day of rest. San Francisco played Sunday in a tough physical game, and now they're getting on a plane cross country. They're playing in a colder. I mean, it's not going to be freezing, but it's not going to be like 60 degrees, and they're playing at noon on their body clocks.
Body clock.
Yeah, I think we can go through. I think the exercise we did position by position shows that at least if you break down by positions, and there are deltas within each position, right? Eagles have a bigger edge at quarterback than some other spots. San Francisco has a bigger edge at linebacker than some other spots, but the rosters are very close. But I think the coaching staffs are, they can be draws too. The home field advantage and the extra day rest, that should not be dismissed here, right? That is a major factor, and especially when you look at a rookie quarterback. So yeah, I think that however we break this down, that last intangibles column is huge for the Eagles.
Imagine coming into the comment section on this podcast and wasting your time defending the old commander's name. Like, what are we doing here? Find something else to do. You disagree?
I actually don't have the comment section.
Jack Del Rio has entered the chat. Good to have you here, Jack.
As I've said in our new interface, I don't get the comment section, so I can't tell you. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a pretty thorough open of the show. That was a pretty good first segment. I think we've hit on the main points. We'll come back tomorrow to really dive into the matchup.
What more do we have to talk about?
But now that we've gone over the broad strokes, I think it's time that we can now go to break, and we will be back on the other side with Tim Kawakami from The Athletic, San Francisco.
Now our next partner is a pretty cool product. Let's talk about Athletic Greens. If you're looking to get better gut health, more energy, and a stronger immune system in a really easy, natural way, you've got to check out Athletic Greens. I'm sure you'll all agree that most of us are not huge fans of having to take a bunch of pills or vitamins in the morning, but with Athletic Greens, you can get rid of all those extra vitamin bottles and finally get some room in your cabinet. Athletic Greens is an all-in-one solution that actually tastes pretty good. You'll really enjoy getting your daily vitamins. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day the right way. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into flu and cold season. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/birds. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/birds to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/BWF and get on your way to being your best self. When you're at your best, you can do great things, but sometimes life gets you bogged down and you may feel overwhelmed or like you're not showing up the way you want to. Working with a therapist can help you get closer to the best version of you. Because when you feel empowered, you are more prepared to take on everything life throws at you. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's not only convenient, but it's also flexible, affordable, and entirely online. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/BWF to get 10% off your first month. That's BETTERHELP.com/BWF.
All right. Welcome back to Birds with Friends. Bo, Zach, joined now by Tim Kawakami, who covers all things Bay Area, but we're obviously going to talk about the 49ers for The Athletic. Tim, first of all, thank you for joining us. What's like the vibe in the Bay Area right now? How excited are they for this game? Like how surprised are they to be here?
I don't think they're too surprised just by the way the end of the season went. Obviously 12 straight wins, including 10-0 to finish the regular season. I think, ask them when they were 3-4, very little different. Now, maybe in the locker room, not that. I'll tell you, it's pretty confident in the locker room. Always has been. Obviously, get the NFC Championship game last season. Then you start losing quarterbacks. Who the hell knows? But that locker room either was putting on a really brave face and was great acting, or they really did believe that Brock Purdy could do something like this. Maybe not exactly this. I didn't think he could do this. I was open about that. I was public about that. And I've been a surprise to anybody. I've had to tell several players, you guys knew it and I didn't, but there's something going on here. We'll see what happens on Sunday. I don't think that ends the Brock Purdy story. You go through different things, but that part, I think it's more like, okay, is Brock Purdy good enough to win this game? Yes. Okay. Is he Brock Purdy enough good? Okay. Yes, he's good. Is he good enough to beat the Eagles in Philadelphia? We don't know. I'm leaning no, but I'm not writing anything off with this kid and this team right now. They're very talented. And he's just good is plugging into the Shanahan mind. Something's happened where those two guys have fused. You got Christian McCaffrey, you got Deebo Samuel, you got George Hill. He's just become a distributor. So I think the mood in the Bay Area is, can Brock Purdy do this? Maybe, with everything, with that defense and everything else. Time will tell, we'll see. But I think it's expectation more than it is like, oh my God, like who knows what's going to happen. It's like, this could happen. It could. I don't know that it will, but it could.
We'll know the full mind melt has happened when Purdy's walking around in the flat brim hat, right?
Yeah. I think he might want to. Like this thing happened early. We're hearing about it in training camp.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we see these guys, right? We can't see the regular practices, so I go to as many as I possibly can. I have other responsibilities, but 49ers training camp, I really try to get to. And there was this whispering, oh my God, it's Brock Purdy. He's incredible. I'm looking, I'm going, I don't see it. I really don't see it. And other people there didn't see it either, I will say. I mean, I wasn't the only one. I might have been the most vocal one. I thought it was mainly like a reaction to, well, Trey Lance is a starter, but we're not seeing him pick this up in the film room, and it's not translating. So this little guy over here, this guy we like, just because that happens, right? The little third stringer is the guy that the coaches love because he does everything right in their minds, maybe not what a fan or an outsider would view. I was wrong. It was happening. Like it was a literal thing that since talked to people, it's like he was taking things in the classroom, he was correcting things in the classroom that other quarterbacks weren't seeing, and he was taking it to the practice field, and they felt it, they saw it. Beat out Nate Sudfeld. Who cares? Big deal.
We care very much here in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that meant a lot to them because they'd paid Nate Sudfeld $2 million.
Right.
He was going to be the backup. You had all the Jimmy Trey stuff going on, so we're kind of distracted by that. But I watched Purdy because I'd heard this kind of undertone that this is was this going to be RG3 Kirk Cousins all over again? Like it felt a little bit like that, and I always felt the Cousins RG3 thing with Kyle was like he kind of got sick of RG3 more than he loved Cousins, and then he started loving Cousins. It started with, this is not exactly what I want in a quarterback. He's the one everybody wants me to love. So maybe it was something similar with Lance and Purdy, something similar to that. But then they just fell in love with Purdy. And then now we're seeing why. He's not ever going to impress you physically. Like you're never going to go, that's just like he stands next to Trent Williams in the huddle. And you're like, oh, who's this little kid who's decided to plly quarterback wearing number 13? He gets out there. He moves around. He's got incredible spatial awareness. He's got a quick little snap throw. It's not a big arm, but he gets it there because his legs are under him. Like he just manages to reset himself. I've always thought of it like elasticity. Can you move left, stop, spin, and get on balance? and throw accurately. He can do that stuff. We haven't seen him get pounded by a team, and the Cowboys came pretty close though. And, obviously the Eagles have a better pass rush, one of the great pass rushes in the history of the league. So we'll see how he does with that. But I didn't see it. And then the second he gets out there, every player's like, yeah, this is the guy. This is the guy. Okay, I think I got to trust them in 12-0. And he's 7-0 as a starter, maybe more than what I saw at training camp. The one time I was fooled. I will admit that one. I did not see it. I've watched a lot of quarterbacks and a lot of training camps, and that one I missed, and maybe for a lot of reasons, because it just was happening like over tape. It was happening in the transition from the tape to the huddle to what he was seeing out there. There were times like Trey Lance was out there in a training camp drill, and Kyle Juszczyk, no, that's the wrong play. That's the wrong play. Literally at the line of scrimmage. That happens. So that's like you kind of assume that young quarterback. And Purdy was just, boom, this is what we're doing. No, you. And we've heard since, like, he's in OTAs as a 7th round pick, last player drafted. He's like, no, Debo, that's the wrong route. And he was right. And Debo didn't get mad because it was the wrong route. Like those sort of things, I think we hear about this with backup quarterbacks all the time. And sometimes it's just bull. This time it was real. Like this time they meant it. It was, you could take it, cut and paste it, and move it to an actual playoff game. And we're still saying it.
I'll pump up the guest for a second. Tim's long been one of my favorite columnists, so I could ask questions from Bob Myers' future to Buddy Ryan's press conferences. But for the sake of the NFC Championship game here, this is the 3rd time in 4 years the Niners are here. How does this team compare to the ones we've seen the past 2 times?
I mean, there's the whole Brock Purdy thing. I mean, we've talked about it. If he's going to be a really good quarterback, then he's better than any quarterback they've taken. He's better than Garoppolo in both times they've gone. Garoppolo was really good in 2019, but he wasn't this. Just extending plays, making plays down, scoring touchdowns. They ran the ball like crazy in the NFC playoffs, as everyone notes, in 19. Even they were a great team partly because they could, partly because Jimmy looked a little shaky in a couple of those games. So Shanahan just said, I'm going to run the ball. Ran the ball like 47 times in the NFC Championship game. They don't do that anymore. They're way more diverse. The whole playbook's open. I think they're a better team than 2019. Maybe not quite as talented. Richard Sherman is a pretty big deal to have in 19. Not quite as best, but very good. They had D Ford on the other side of Bosa. They just don't have somebody like that. Talent for talent. They had DeForest Buckner, who they traded away and didn't really get a huge return for. So I'd say that team probably was more talented. Joe Staley's your left tackle. Trent Williams is the best left tackle in the league, but they still had so much talent on that 19 team, except for the quarterback. Again, I'm a Garoppolo guy. I defend him against everybody because he's the best they could do. He's a winning quarterback most of the time, winning like 70% of the games with 49ers, and they lost with every other quarterback except for him until this guy. So Purdy's better. Purdy, even if he gets destroyed by the Eagles, I would not be shocked by that. I don't think it's going to happen. Even if he does, it's not going to be like this guy's terrible. Guys get destroyed in playoff games. We've seen Brady look terrible in the playoff game. This guy's not Brady, but I just think that element plus McCaffrey, it's a whole other. You drop Christian McCaffrey into this. I think this team is the best team they have had in the Shanahan era. But I think the Eagles are the best team, maybe other than the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, were pretty good when they beat them Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are better now, pending Mahomes' injury. But I think the Eagles are the best team they're going to face in the Shanahan playoff era. I just, and you add in on the road, you add in just the dimensions that the Eagles have. The Cowboys played them tough at Levi's. And I think the Eagles are, they're the Cowboys times 3. And I don't think the 49ers will really face that in this playoff era.
One thing we've talked about this week, Tim, is in a game in which, the margins might be so thin, such an evenly matched game, there's a possibility it comes down to in-game management. And Kyle Shanahan has been conservative in these situations, not willing to go for it. And it seems like to be disconsonant with having such a good offensive mind and being such a good play caller. What's your vantage point on why that has always been the case?
Yeah, I take some heat on this because I defend Kyle on this a little bit because he's protecting the defense. Like he says, like he doesn't want to turn over in a short field. He doesn't want to punt it with, a minute 5 left and let the other team have the ball. Even when they're playing great defense, and it's Dak Prescott, who was literally giving you the ball back a lot of times. He just doesn't want to put the defense in that place. He knows he's got a great defense. If I was Kyle Shanahan, I'd ride that and say, you know what, I'm going to take more gambles offensively because I know my defense can hold up. He's the rare offensive mind who thinks the other way. I want to protect my defense. That's what the running the ball is all about. It's protecting the quarterback and it's protecting the defense. That's what chewing up time is all about. That's what he wants to establish the way the game looks. And, we know Andy Reid, great offensive minds. Andy Reid on down, they throw the ball. So that is not Shanahan in any way, shape, or form. And if you are in that mindset, as he said, when he's asked about I asked him about burning 26 seconds off the clock at the end of the first half, and then you call timeout, and then you basically are just field goal or you can't do anything else. He's saying that's how you hold the team to 12 points. Like, that's how you do it. And it looks a little creaky, and he's been a little more open. I'd say a lot more open with Purdy. He's threatening downfield way more than he would with Garoppolo, certainly with Lance. But he still thinks, I don't want to expose my defense. I want them to be fresh. I don't want them worn down, and I want them to be able to turn the ball over themselves and get to short fields for us. And they have got a ton of short fields. I think I had Mike Sando on my podcast. He said they have the shortest. Brock Purdy's had the shortest fields of any quarterback in the league. And this is how Shanahan just thinks field position. And it's weird for an offensive-minded coach who has coached some great. I mean, that Falcons offense in 2016 was open. They threw the ball like 480 times, I think. But this is the way he thinks. He believes it works. Maybe, if Purdy turns into this, Kirk Cousins or plus, and I imagine he can be, they will throw the ball and open up throwing the ball a little bit more. They opened up throwing the ball against the Seahawks. They might open up throwing the ball a little bit against the Eagles if they think, there's going to be 8-man fronts, there's going to be 5 defensive linemen. But their heart and soul is running the ball and keeping the defense fresh and not having to defend short fields. It's just who he is. It's going to frustrate people. It has frustrated 49er fans from the beginning. I just say there is a way he looks at this game and he doesn't veer from it. And that's something at least to appreciate from a, overall view. You might not appreciate in the game. I do think Eagles might change it up a little bit. And they have not been underdogs until now. They haven't played a team, who can match their talent in this whole streak. The last one was the Chiefs, who blew them out. And then they've won every single game since then. So there might be a different look to this, but his heart is to protect his defense. And I'll tell you, the defensive players really like that. They appreciate it. This is an offensive-minded guy who does not throw the ball 50 times, does not give them a 20-yard field. He gives them an 80-yard field, like every time he possibly can. And this defense in his mind is worth doing that for.
Speaking about the defense, D'Amico Ryans gets a lot of attention here, former player in Philly. What's the secret to this defense? Why are they the top defense in the league?
The talent. I mean, they got great talent, and I think I just love linebackers. I'll show my Philly time back to Seth Joyner, Byron Evans, whatever. I just think linebackers connect you. They allow you to do both things: stop the run and cover the pass. You need everything else, but Warner and Greenlaw specifically. They bring in Al-Shire when it's there's tight end and fullback in the game, but it's like they just. The middle of the field is covered. And if I had to say, like, what really differentiates, when the 49ers back in the Harbaugh days and Vic Fangio at DC, they had Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman. So the middle of the field's covered. And that's specifically important, obviously, when the quarterback can move. Now, they have allowed some quarterbacks to gain some yards against them, including Hurts last season, when Hurts really wasn't throwing the ball that much. They get a little like, let's go pulverize somebody. If you play action them, you can throw it over their head sometimes. Jarrett Stidham did this, the great Jarrett Stidham.
That's right.
So like there's some weakness there, and I'm sure the Eagles are going to be looked to do it. But other than Bosa as the closer, as the single best defensive player in the league, and they've got Javarius Ward as their number one corner. They signed as free agent. They hit with him. He's very solid. He can get beat. He's not locked down, Darrelle Revis, but he's good. They've got these linebackers who just tie it together. Fred Warner, covering CeeDee Lamb deep on a deep seam. I mean, you just don't see that very often. That's what Derek Brooks like. and Greenlaw just flying to the ball. They are going to hit you hard. Greenlaw might get a 15-yard penalty in there once a game, but those linebackers are different. They're just different. I mean, I look at the Eagles, and I am impressed by the Eagles, but I don't see that. Like, that's what I don't like. You don't see the Cowboys did not have that. It's special when you watch 54 and 57. Like, they're literally racing each other to the ball carrier, and one of them's going to hit him really hard, and the other one's going to be pissed off that he wasn't the one who hit him hard. And that's what Willis and Bowman were like. You just tied it together. Now, Greenlaw can get play actioned. Like, there's no, he and Hufanga, the safety, who is a all-pro safety, which I was a little surprised by. He's a good player. He's a playmaker, but you can go over the top with him. I think the Eagles are going to be able to go over the top of the 49ers once or twice. Will they hit it? We'll see. But those guys run to the ball, man. They just, those linebackers, you feel the linebackers. You feel these guys' speed and their toughness every single game. And then you have to figure out what to do. For the offense, you have to figure out what to do to counter that, because those guys are there.
I've just got one more for you, Tim. I did want to ask you about the Charles Omenihu situation.
Yep.
And Kyle Shanahan saying that, if he's healthy, he's going to play.
I don't know that he said that. I don't know if he said that. He said he's not off the team. We'll see. Yeah.
What is he? I guess just generally, what is like the Niners' institutional history with things like this?
They had Reuben Foster with this administration, which was terrible. I mean, they went through all kinds. So they loved him. They loved him as a person, loved him as a player, and he kept getting into trouble with this one incident that continued and continued. And so they had a bad hit, and they had to throw him off the team in the middle of the season. It was terrible. Previously, in the Trent Baalke, Jim Harbaugh era, they had a massive ton. I don't know if you remember. They had Alden Smith, they had Ray McDonald, they had Bruce Miller, and they really handled it poorly. They seemed to gather these kinds of players, Baalke in particular, and sometimes even coddle these kinds of players. And it was a massive issue. It became a problem. I think Shanahan and Lynch have been pretty solid about it. No team's ever going to be perfect. The Reuben Foster thing was bad, but they did end up cutting him. So Omenihu situation comes up in the week of the NFC Championship game. Is terrible timing, terrible situation. At this point, they're backing him in a tentative way. Okay, we've checked. Again, who knows? Nobody knows the details of that. It is a terrible situation. Nobody wants anybody who would be involved in something like that. I frankly think he might not they use this not to play him. Take the time to get through this. Now, football coaches want to win games. Their history after the Reuben Foster thing is, let's just not have anything to do with these guys. I don't know how it's not a balanced situation when you're going into the NFC Championship game. You might want Omenihu to rush the passer, but I don't know that they're going to play him. We'll see. Shanahan, did not say he's on the team. We're playing him. He said he's on the team still. Gotcha. And he practiced yesterday, so maybe he is going to play. But I don't see it as a massive distraction. Obviously for the families involved, it's terrible. But I think it's probably a coin flip whether he plays, and they're going to take a look at this. And how teams do these investigations. I don't think it's not like they've got the incredible 7 investigators going through everything, but I think they feel decent enough about it to think about playing him. He may or may not play him. If I'm them, I don't play him. I just don't play him. And then continue the time. We'll see. And he's not the greatest player in the world. He's okay. That shouldn't be the barometer of this. I'm just saying, as they weigh all these practical things, I just don't think I would play him.
Last one for me on a much different scale here, but some dessert for our audience. You were on the ground floor of teams that are still kind of legendary, for lack of a better term, here in Philly. What's your best Buddy Ryan story or story from that Eagles era that you could share with our audience?
Yeah, I mean, people might remember, I don't know, maybe from long ago, I was pretty tight with Buddy. I was in my first job coming out of college, and for some reason, Buddy just liked me. And this was year 2 and year 3 of Buddy. And then I left after that. And we just, something, we got each other. He was, profane, he was stubborn, but we liked each other. He was colorful. And for some reason, I tend to like Harbaugh, Jerry West. For some reason, these big personalities, I get along. Maybe that says something about me. I don't know. But I'll say I did play racquetball with Buddy once.
Nice.
To the laughter of everybody down. The Vet used to have this weird little dark tunnel that gets you to a racquetball court, and the coaches will play there. And I played Buddy once. I'm 23 years old, pretty in good shape. I played basketball, played baseball, and Buddy kicked the bleep out of him. Like, he just destroyed me, like getting in my way and oops, sorry about that, and taunting me. And he just loved beating the crap out of a 23-year-old in racquetball when he was not in the greatest shape of his life. And I've told this story over and over again, but like Buddy, what I liked about Buddy is sometimes he wasn't great, but he was quick. Like, he could go back and forth with you. And in a group, it's like one, like a OTAs or whatever it was, and they just drafted Steve Kaufusi like in the 10th round, back then when they have 1 million rounds. And Buddy, he could tell defensive lineman kind of liked him, and I just got kind of flustered. And instead of asking what do you like about Steve Kaufusi, I asked, what does Steve Kaufusi like about you? Most coaches are like, what the hell? He quickly looked at me and kind of winked and said, well, I'm short, fat, and still look pretty good. And it's like that the ability of you guys have dealt with coaches, the ability of a coach to do it like that on a turning on a dime, it was pretty amazing. I just got Buddy. I liked Buddy. I liked all those guys. I still talk to Quick. Randall was fascinating. Jerome Brown, Seth Joyner, Reggie. But I'd say Quick and Buddy were the guys I got along the most with. I was just young. I was the same age as these guys, a little bit. I was younger than most of the players. I was just talking to Quick on the phone, and I was like, I was young back then, man. He's like, yeah, we all were young. It was a young, fascinating group of guys who were a little crazy, and Buddy encouraged that. But it was fun to cover. They didn't win playoff games, and that's how you're judged. But man, that was fun. It was just imagine me just dropping into this, and it's like, just go cover them, go write stuff, and go get whatever you can. The first time I was talking to Quick about this, I go out in the off season, and I think I talked to him in the locker room, and he said, yeah, come out and we'll talk at my house. And then this ended up in a day at Mike's house, and his mother was out going fishing. So I went fishing with Mike and his mom and nephews and nieces. Can't really do that these days. Like it's just not the way that team was, like kind of that open, and very confident, very young, and kind of let loose a little bit, and let loose maybe off the rails a little bit sometimes. But man, that was fun for me to cover. It was really fun. And the early days of WIP, and like it just was a crazy time. I am glad to always look back on those days, and I'm glad that sometimes people still sort of remember me in those days. Absolutely.
Well, Tim Kawakami, thank you so much for spending the time and giving us a little perspective. You can listen to Tim's podcast, The TK Show, on wherever you get your podcasts, and obviously read him on The Athletic. And that'll do it for this episode of Birds with Friends. We will be back on Friday with Deniz and another special guest, we're thinking. And so for Zach and Tim and Marissa and Elijah, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.